Gorillaz is a multi-genre musical and visual collaboration between Jamie Hewlett, Damon Albarn, and many other producers, rappers, and musicians. About a year ago, the newest album was released in over 7 years, Humanz. The hype was big, everyone was so excited because of the singles that were released, and then it came out, and it was something. So what went wrong with the album, and what could have been done to make it better? Well, let's find out. Gorillaz is a band that I've admired for quite a few years now, enjoying the vast sound that to me felt like what pop should really be, a melodic, fun, no-holds-barred genre. I was really excited about this new album, especially due to it being the first new album I got to experience as a fan of Gorillaz. I had pre-ordered Humanz a few days before, even getting the deluxe version due to my excitement. Throughout the school day and at home, I listened to the entirety of Humanz and thought, wow, this really sucks. I went into this album with a positive but skeptical attitude. While some of the singles released beforehand weren't my thing, and the more modern pop sound was a bit concerning, I was really excited nonetheless. Upon hearing the final product, though, I was extremely disappointed in what seemed like anything but a Gorillaz album. Before we get into what frustrated me about this project, I want to first talk about what I did like about the album. Even though for the most part I disliked it, there were things that sparked my interest and were enjoyable. While for the most part musically this album didn't impress me, the art and overall feel of this Gorilla phase really interested me. The more human and realistic-like style of Murdoch, 2D, Noodle, and Russell really gave it a different feel than previous incarnations, deviating from what we've expected in the past. One thing that especially interests me is the use of more realistic backgrounds for the characters to reside in. Anytime Gorillaz posts on social media, it's usually in an actual location and backdrop, with the characters drawn on afterwards. While we saw some of this in music videos for Plastic Beach, featuring the bald boy himself, Bruce Willis, it seems like this time around there's a full embracement of the realistic style. Even though I have strong opinions on collaborators and Gorillaz, I do want to say that these choices were pretty solid. Aside from a few missteps like Jenny Beth and All My Life, or as he's known, Popcan, these artists are pretty solid. I'm not a huge fan of Vince Staples, but he definitely made the opening track Ascension get you interested and pumped up for the album and experience ahead. Kali Uchis was also another featured artist that I was surprised to see on Gorillaz, and I really like what she added to some of the tracks. I really enjoyed her on some of Tyler the Creator's work like Perfect and way too many songs from Flower Boy. Benjamin Clementine's performance on Hallelujah Money took some time for me to appreciate, but I actually kinda like his dark and poetic performance to a very oddball beat. While I wasn't happy with every collaboration choice on this album, I did enjoy the majority of these artists quite well. Out of the 14 tracks on Humanz, I can honestly say I enjoyed 6 songs. The tracks that to me were good were Ascension, Andromeda, Charger, Busted in Blue, Let Me Out, and Hallelujah Money. That's 42% of the album's discography. If we include the other 5 tracks on the deluxe edition, which was the version that I paid for, that would be around 31%. While it seems like I actually liked very few songs on the album, when I first heard it, I pretty much hated every single song on here. After not listening to it for a while and coming back, I can say for sure that these songs were something that I could listen to more than once and enjoy it. I will admit that a lot of songs on here are catchy, but just because a song is memorable doesn't automatically make it good. This is pretty much the end point of me saying anything good about Humanz. Now I want to argue why, at least in my opinion, I thought this album was a steaming pile of garbage that really shouldn't have been the product of a 7-year hiatus. While Gorillaz has always been a large collaborative effort between many different artists, including Snoop Dogg, De La Soul, and even Lou Reed, there has always been something that ties the albums together. In previous attempts, despite it being a large collaboration, one constant has always been Damon Albarn and what seems to be his writing style. I can't exactly put my finger on what really makes Albarn's writing style, but on Gorillaz, Demon Days, The Fall, and Plastic Beach, I can tell that he is a large part of the final product writing and production-wise. With Humanz, one of the most jarring things about it wasn't the difference in genre, which is expected for Gorillaz, but the style of writing. Most of the songs really don't seem like they were written by Albarn. What makes this even more noticeable is a single that came out a few months after the release of Humanz, Sleeping Powder. In my opinion at least, Sleeping Powder was a better song than anything on Humanz. Oh, and would you look at that, it was made entirely by Albarn. It seems like Albarn definitely had a large part in making Humanz, but for some reason a majority of the songs don't sound anything like how he creates music. While experimenting with new sounds is usually a good thing for most artists, a drastic change in style altogether seems a bit odd. I don't think it's inherently a bad thing, but it definitely turned me off from the album as I was listening to it. While it's extremely common for Gorillaz to have a wide variety of collaborating artists, Humanz was an entirely different story. Probably the most jarring thing about this album, other than the writing style, was definitely how the collaborators took over the album. There is one song on the entire album that has no guests whatsoever, and that's including bonus tracks. The main problem here isn't that there's a bunch of artists contributing to the album, but rather that they are usually the lead voice of every song, with 2D being pushed off to the chorus or a bridge on about 95% of the album. Shoving a large element of Gorillaz off to the side was a real downer, since that's a big part of the Gorillaz style. I won't say this hasn't happened in the past with songs like Some Kind of Nature, which is actually one of my favorite Gorillaz songs, but those were spread out from album to album, not dominating an entire record. The lack of 2D is another factor that stifles Humanz from really feeling like a true Gorillaz album. Gorillaz has always been a mockery of the modern popular music scene, trying to manufacture both the music and personalities, while also being better than anything on the top 40. While this has been a staple of Gorillaz since its conception, with this new album it seems to conform to what has been the norm in pop music. While elements of other genres do appear here and there, the only real thing that sets most of these songs apart from a regular pop song is usually the choice of synthesizer. All of the songs on this album seem to conform both in production and sound to what you'd hear on the radio. This was extremely disappointing to me because it takes a large aspect of what made Gorillaz so unique and interesting and just ignores it. To top it all off, this album doesn't have a lot of variety. Rapper over a quirky beat, singer over synths and digital drums, blah blah blah, it all feels the same. Sometimes a decent instrumental bridge will come in, but those moments are few and far between. Overall, this album seems very manufactured and uninspired, lacking what makes Gorillaz Gorillaz. Overall, Humanz was an extremely weak attempt at making a solid Gorillaz album, and disappointed me sonically on almost all fronts. While it seems like there was a lot of thought and energy put into it, the end result was so bland and uninteresting, and lacked any of the spark or livelihood that makes Gorillaz so unique and special. Hopefully the next Gorillaz album will be a better and more valiant effort, but for now all we can do is just sit and wait.